Hey, what's going on, guys? If you're watching this video, I imagine you're a big fan of Kingdom. Now, last year I released a video of chapters 1 through 795. It was a massive video covering every arc and all the important details, and something I'm really proud of. Now, at that time, we were only through chapter 795. That was all that was available. Well, it's about a year and a half later, and we got some more chapters. We're up to 858 at the moment. Now, instead of combining that into the last video, I'm making this continuation video. I won't combine everything again until we reach chapter 900. Now, before we actually get into the video itself, I just got one thing to plug, guys. I know many of you are looking for gifts this holiday season, for friends, family, maybe even yourself. And if you're a fan of my channel, I know that you love Berserk. And if you go to TT Aesthetic, they have a ton of Berserk merchandise. T-shirts, sweatshirts, keychains, all sorts of different stuff. Heck, they have Berserker armor and Dragon Slayer keychains. It's absolutely phenomenal. They even have some really cool medieval costumes. So if you're going to a Renaissance fair or you just want to dress up for your D&D campaign, I mean, they got something for you guys. And if you use my discount code when you're checking out, Berserk Dude, you're gonna get an extra 15% off. So, I mean, it's pretty phenomenal stuff, guys. Like I said, the holidays are coming up, so if you're looking for something cool, go check them out. But with that said, guys, let's get into the video itself and talk about Kingdom. The Enshu tribe springs forth, climbing the castle walls with no ropes or ladders. Riboku hears about this, ordering 5,000 men from the central battlefield to trap them inside the castle like rats. Although Heki's troops don't have any weapons, they decide to break out of the jail and make a run for it. Unfortunately, it's not long before the Zhao soldiers start taking them out one by one. But just in the nick of time, Kitari comes in to rescue him. Heki and the men climb onto the mountain tribe's horses, as they look to make haste. After their escape, a messenger says that both Osen and Yotanwa's armies are retreating. While riding, Heki gets a little turned on by holding on to Kitari's body, making her quite embarrassed, and a little bit pissed off too. Though Heki's army was salvaged, the Qin army was completely and utterly defeated. With news reaching Kanyo, the dream of unifying China was crumbling to dust. With Osen's army completely devastated, Ohan reminds So-Oh that it's his responsibility to support him. That being said, So-Oh claims that this is as far as he goes. He has something he must do at all cost. General So-Oh is then brought before Kansaro to announce his surrender. He's not defecting from the Qin army, however. He instead tells them about a girl he loves, Shiryo. He begs that they bring her body to him, even if it's just a strand of hair, so that he can embrace her one last time. Kansaro then has Shiryo released from her bondage, as it turns out that she's alive and well. Shiryo leaps into his arms as the two lovingly embrace each other. He then offers up his head to Kansaro in exchange for Shiryo's safe passage. Out of respect to So-Oh's courage, he's going to release the both of them unharmed. In Canton, while the citizens celebrate Riboku's victory, Kakukai schemes up ways to diminish his status. Shibasho laments the fact that his kingdom of Seika was pulled into this war, but Riboku reminds him that the repetition of war and peace is all there is. Do you believe that Qin will give up their dream of unifying China? Questions Shibasho. Now, with Qin's loss of troops and money, and their 3-year alliance with Wei ending soon, the dream of unifying China is looking quite grim. In a flashback, we learn that Shohei offered up his head to Aisei, and that's because of his 2 embarrassing defeats to Riboku. Aisei remained confident that the dream could be achieved, so Shohei requested 3 days' time to devise a new plan for surpassing Riboku. In the present, Shohei says that he needs 3 military reforms to revive the dream once more. The first is to bring every single Qin citizen into a family registry. This reform will give them an accurate number of how many adult men reside within the country, allowing them to draft them and mobilize a large force once again. Aisei agrees to this. For the second reform, Shohei wants to raise the rank of a few generals to one that is just shy of Great General. And the 3 are exactly who you would expect: Ohan, Moten, and Shin. With their new roles, Shohei promotes Kanjo, Akakin, Eisen, and Rikosen the generals. And as for the High Shin unit, Kyokai will be promoted to the rank of general as well. With Shin's 60,000 troops, he'll join To's army of 100,000 men so that they could set out to destroy Han. Yan then starts negotiations with Qin, and for this reason, they sent the crown prince there to serve as a hostage. That being said, he left without permission, and although there were no immediate ramifications, it would later lead to a major complication. Osen tells his men that Riboku has a great weakness, and if he chooses to exploit it, killing him would be simple. For now though, they'll grieve the deaths of Ako and Denrimi, and watch the events between Qin and the other countries unfold. Although En feels undeserving of his 5,000-man commander role, he'll do everything he can not to disappoint Shin. It's then announced around the camp that Kyokai will become a general. As the men collectively celebrate, Shin then contemplates the notion of destroying Han, as a look of trepidation is painted on his face. Now, the task of completing a family registry was quite the onerous one, with its fair share of challenges. In the meantime, a new year had begun, with snow descending down toward the ground. Now, this would be the year in which Chin would attack Han. Having just had a meeting with Shohei, Toh explains that they will set out to destroy Han. Now, to prevent Zhao and Wei from interfering, Ohan and Moten will be stationed in positions to cut them off. If they are unsuccessful in this campaign, then the path of unifying China is lost. With the family registry complete, the first pillar to Shohei's plan is done. This allowed Chin to mobilize a large force once again, surprising the other nations around them. Goho Mei correctly determines that their goal is Han, and that they intend to cut off reinforcements from Zhao and Wei. Elsewhere, we see that Ohan and his army are already in position to cut off the advancements from the Wei army. After crossing the Yellow River, they attack the middle-sized castle of Rakushi. Meanwhile, Moten and his troops set up a defense between Ryo-Yo and Gyo to prevent the Zhao army from aiding the Han. In Shinte, Rakuei Khan is confident that the capital will not fall so easily to Qin. An urgent report then comes in saying that Qin is invading the country, with a force composed of 60,000 men. "The best feeling ever, right, Ensan?" says Shin. In a flashback, Kyokai presents a bold strategy for them not to fight. And as it just so happens, Toh was thinking the same thing. Reports then come into Shinte, stating that Toh is heading towards Nanyo with a force of 100,000 men. After some deliberation, a news report comes in stating that a second army is also coming in, and it's also composed of 100,000 men. With impending doom staring down Nanyo, Chancellor Cho gives the order to abandon the city. The bulk of the residents retreat to the capital, but Ryo-An, the lord of Nanyo Castle, will stay behind. The Han soldiers take their leave, as Shin and their army are rather surprised that they won without shedding any blood. It's then revealed that the 100,000 soldiers that were following Toh's army were actually just a decoy. They were actually comprised of just a bunch of old people who couldn't really fight, but it was used effectively to make Han surrender Nanyo without any conflict. The full Qin army enters the castle, as Ryo-An surrenders without any hesitation. In a surprising turn of events, Toh wants Qin flags to be raised alongside the Han flags. Now, usually when you overtake a castle, you take down their flags and you raise your own. So this sign of harmony shows that Toh believes that they need to bring Han into the fold. In this way, they're going to try different tactics, rather than simply crushing them. Gakyo of Qin then aims to upset all of this with his strict obedience to the many laws of Qin. And Toh, as you might imagine, is quite perturbed with this development. Now, Gakyo wants Ryo-An to be beheaded, yet Toh steps in to put a stop to this. Whoever tries to behead Ryo-An, I, Toh, will behead them right here. Contrary to how it appears, Toh is not doing this for Ryo-An's sake. He's doing it because Nanyo is special. Toh aims to make Nanyo the cornerstone of the world. He basically wants to use it as a proving ground for what they want all of China to look like. Thus, Gakyo is to work with Ryo-An to exchange information and combine Qin and Han cultures. Toh also wants Shin to establish good relations with the people of Nanyo, but the citizens are understandably scared of his presence. A party is then held between the two to foster a sense of unity. Unfortunately, one of the elders takes this opportunity to attack Shin with reckless abandon. Shin easily stops the blade as he instructs his men to settle down. Now, it turns out that the old man's daughter and granddaughter were raped by the Qin soldiers multiple times. Shin says that Aisei is not looking for domination. He wants to create a world where tragedies like this will never occur again. Shin will not take away his blade, and he reminds him that his daughter and granddaughter have always been by his side. Afterwards, the gap between the Qin and the Han begin to close. Some new recruits join the Haishin unit, as Shin wants to make them as tough as steel. Ten then announces a laundry list of promotions, with everyone excited about their new roles. And in case you want to pause for a moment and see the entire layout of the army, here it is right here. And for completeness sake, here's the makeup of Kyokai's army as well. With this, the Haishin unit starts intensive training. Ryo-An then learns that a Nanyo citizen attacked a Qin soldier with a knife. Now, it turns out he carried out this attack because the Qin soldier attacked his sister. And to show equality under the Qin law, the soldier is thusly executed. Things progress in a positive direction, as the two cultures start finding a balance. And then at the start of 2030 BC, the Qin army makes their way to the capital, Shinte. With Toh leaving the castle walls, he entrusts Nanyo to Gokei and Ryo-An. In the capital, the Han army prepares itself for the coming Qin invasion. Rakuei Khan has amassed an army of 210,000 men, and they'll be going up against the 160,000 Qin soldiers. With this, they set out for Aite Plains. In a flashback, we learn that the castles surrounding Nanyo have refused to send troops to Shinte, meaning that the Han numbers are now less than they thought, but they still outnumber the Qin soldiers. A representative of To then goes to Shinte to inform them that Nanyo has become a utopia between the people of Qin and Han. He then recommends that they stop the bloodshed by following in the footsteps of Nanyo and surrender without any conflict. Chancellor Cho does not believe these lies, saying that they will not give up until all the Qin soldiers vomit up blood and retreat. While in prison, Lord Josei says that the real reason he came to Shinte was to convey a message to Princess Nei, and it's from none other than To himself. Word then comes into Kanyo about the battle to take place at Aite Plains, as Issei says he's counting on General To and Shin. A crushing victory for Han would be the best outcome for Wei, but Go-Ho-Mei suspects that To and Shin won't be defeated so easily. Ohan and Moten will do their best to hold their respective positions, so that To and Shin can focus primarily on fighting Han. With Shin making its move, all the states around China observe the situation carefully, looking for their own opportunities. Finally, the time has come, with Han holding a 30,000 troop advantage over Qin. Supreme Commander of the Han Army, Rakue Khan, rallies his troops by saying that every last invader in their land will be buried here. Hakuo, a vice commander of the army, says that they are the strongest true army and will protect their homeland. We will bring down the iron hammer of justice and pulverize these Qin brutes. To reminds the Qin soldiers that although the Han army has more experience than them, they, on the other hand, have survived a gauntlet of life or death situations. The Haishin unit has fought challenging battles for more than 10 years, and they continue to survive. The troops rally behind his words, as To asks Shin, his vice commander in this battle, for affirmation. With the voice of a thunderbolt, Shin says that he will be at the very front of the battle, and they will seize victory. With this, the 4 generals command their men to start the battle. And boy, do things ever start explosively. Now this is the arrangements of the various armies, with Rakue Khan outnumbering To's army by 20,000, and Hakuo outnumbering Shin's army by 10,000. Very early on, it becomes apparent that the Han army is stronger than they gave them credit for. Nevertheless, the Haishin unit uses the strength they built up from battle experience to retake the initiative. In a flashback, we learn that To wants to use the strength of the officers to end the battle as early as possible. In the now, Roku Omi plows through the battlefield with the force of a truck. Shin does likewise, as Rakue Khan has perfectly predicted their aims of ending things quickly. Now despite Shin's efforts, Ten notes that the infantry is not making much progress at the moment. Hakuo has seen enough, making his intention clear that he's going to hunt down Shin. Now an interesting development starts to take place. To and a small detachment force have disappeared from headquarters. They're seen riding in a forest, as they are getting dangerously close to the territory of the Han army. They then come upon a small carriage, and they're meeting up with Princess Nei of Han. "It's been a while, General To," says Princess Nei. In a flashback, General To conveyed a message that only Princess Nei could save the people of Han. In the now, the two come face to face, as Princess Nei slaps him across the face. She did this because he broke his promise, allowing Kanpishi to die. After apologizing, To warns Princess Nei that the Qin army cannot be stopped, and that they will continue to attack until they get what they want. Thus, he wants Princess Nei to convince Shinte to surrender, so that the people of Han can be spared. "Princess Nei, I would like to have Shinte surrender without a fight and open up their gates to us," says To. The princess, however, cannot hand over the capital of Han without a fight. "Han will never surrender. We will resist to the bitter end." To excuses himself for his impertinence, as he hoists her up onto his horse. He shows her the sight of a real battlefield, reminding her that he will not be able to control all his soldiers, which means some pretty bad things could happen to the civilians living in the capital. Understandably, the princess is quite horrified by what she sees. "Please return to the capital after this, and carefully consider your course of action. Will you extend Han's existence for only a single day, or will you quickly put a stop to the loss of life? What is best for the people of Han?" questions To. No matter the answer she gives, To will support her. With this, he enters the fray, with the intent of taking Rakue Khan's head. To makes his presence felt immediately as he enters the battlefield. Now To wants his entire army to come to him, so they can make a move right away to slay Rakue Khan. "Phew, don't get so worked up, To. We still aren't targeting you yet," thinks Rakue Khan. Yoko of the Han army plows through the Haishin unit, knocking Garo back with extreme force. Shin faces him head on, but he quickly realizes that his strength would rival that of the Wei Fire Dragon Gaimo. Rakue Khan predicted that he would show himself early, so they set up a countermeasure to take Shin out. With Han's strongest warrior going up against Shin, To will strike Rakue Khan with everything he's got. as he's certain that Shin will not be cut down so easily. Shin and Yoko engage each other in a furious exchange. After a bit of time, Hakuo makes his presence known. With Shin surrounded by a wall of enemies, all his officers make it their mission to punch a hole through for him to escape. Meanwhile, To makes it clear that he wants to fight Rakuei-kan, as the Han general is quite disappointed that things are moving along quicker than he anticipated. Embracing the challenge, Rakuei-kan makes his way forward, ready to end things here and now. In a flashback, we learn that Han has done well to defend against the invasions from the Wei and the Zhao, and it's all thanks to the two young lions who racked up impressive accomplishments. And those two were none other than Rakuei-kan and Hakuo. To acknowledges that the two are geniuses, but remarks that their lack of battle experience over the past 20 years has put them at a severe disadvantage. Rakuei-kan carries out a strategy to cut off To's army from the reinforcements. Now, this is the current setup on the battlefield, with Kanoa, Rokoomi, and Ryokoku being cut off from To's main force. Your slow judgment will bring ruin to your entire army. Thanks, Rakuei-kan. Now, not only does this tactic isolate To's army, it provides a nice setup for attacking the right and left armies as well. Meanwhile, Yoko is completely overwhelming Shin with his sheer force. The Han look for the final blow, but Shin continues to persevere on with everything he's got. And just in the nick of time, Shin's reinforcements burst onto the scene, giving Shin a new sense of hope. Yoko continues on his rampage, so Den and Den go to confront him. Unfortunately, Den-ai gets slashed right across the side of the face. Tan shoots an arrow at Yoko to prevent him from finishing off Den-ai. With Yoko preoccupied, Shin finally has the opportunity to focus all his efforts on the vice commander, Hakuo. Shin starts the conflict aggressively, yet Hakuo displays his own strength with an impressive counter. Shin nearly passes out, but he pulls himself together to block Hakuo's next strike. You are Han's second general, and I am the man who will become a great general under the heavens. Now, Hakuo had calculated that a strong army from the left would come to assist them. Unfortunately for them, Kyokai's unit was fiercely impeding their ability to move. And as it just so happens, this situation is playing out exactly as planned. But even so, Shin needs to finish things off quickly so that Kyokai's unit doesn't push themselves beyond the limits. Hakuo does not want the Han people turned into slaves. Yet En reminds him that not a single person from Nanyo has faced that sort of punishment. He even shows them a talisman that was gifted to him from a family in Nanyo. And as it just so happens, they are praying for his safety. Hakuo refuses to believe them, attacking Shin with everything he's got. The two both go in for devastating swings, as Hakuo seems to have gotten the worst of it. In a flashback, Rakuei-kan warned Hakuo about Shin's talent, and he even warned him to retreat if his strength exceeded his expectations. Rakuei-kan's words ring through his head, as he stubbornly says that he will do no such thing. We choose to protect our homeland to the end, says Hakuo while fighting back. Hakuo continues to angrily fight on, narrowly taking off Shin's head in the process. Unfortunately, he's the one that gets his head sliced in half. As the vice commander's head rolls onto the ground, the Qin troops cheer on the victory of their general. En then calls upon the Kenba tribe to relay the message across the entire battlefield immediately. Before the Kenba tribe can do that, the roars of the Haishin unit spread across the battlefield, making the situation all too apparent. Shin admits to pushing himself too hard, but this is the consequence of fighting a number 2 general. His stamina has run completely dry, which means he's going to need his various commanders to protect him from Yoko. Rakuei-kan believes that the cheers are indicative of Hakuo's victory. With this, he wants his personal unit sent out to capture To's head. Now, as it turns out, both Rakuei-kan and To are making themselves a target for very specific reasons. To's reasons, however, remain more secretive, so it's anyone's guess as to what he'll do next. Through his numerous battles over the years, To has gained a sense for the battlefield itself. It's not something that can be learned, however. It must be experienced. And unfortunately for Rakuei-kan, he lacks that very experience. Just then, Kano's army breaks through on the right side. Kano then makes a beeline for Rakuei-kan, nearly getting himself killed in the process. With Kano successfully breaking through the enemy's line, To urges everyone to start fighting all out and to set their sights on Rakuei-kan's head. The Han Supreme Commander remains befuddled. He doesn't know how he got outmaneuvered by To's battle plan. To and Rakuei-kan then engage each other, with the Han general gaining the early advantage. The two continue fighting as Rokoomi comes in for a surprise attack. Luckily for Rakuei-kan, Yoko was there to provide some much needed defense. Pressing in on the Han Commander-in-Chief, Rakuei-kan, To shows off his impressive speed and skill, slashing Rakuei-kan across the neck. Yoko puts a stop to things with a massive swing from his glaive, giving To everything he can handle. Yoko then reveals the unpleasant truth, that Shin cut down Hakuo on the other battlefield. With things breaking down to their left, Rakuei-kan says that they need to finish off To to claim their total victory. Yoko says that they shouldn't gamble on such an outcome, and if they were to lose right here, Shinte would be lost for sure. Rakuei-kan remains unyielding, as he'll do whatever it takes to protect Han from the murderous blades of the Qin army. The two supreme commanders engage each other once more, as it seems that one of them will be losing their life very soon. However, in a surprising turn of events, Rakuei-kan orders his entire army to withdraw, stating that they will reform ranks for the coming days of battle. As the Han army makes its departure, To wonders who Yoko truly is. Now, although the exact number of casualties is not known, the Qin army won a great victory by taking the head of Hakuo. A messenger from Rakuei-kan's army informs Princess Nei that the first day ended in defeat, and that Vice Commander Hakuo was slain. Once the news reaches Shinte, Rohaku has a look of horror on his face. He demands that they call back Rakuei-kan immediately, but Princess Nei orders everyone to calm down. On the opposite end of the spectrum, Kanyo celebrates the total victory of the Qin army on the first day of battle. With this, if the Qin army can win the next battle at Tosa, they'll have the capital within their sights. The elites start making preparations to leave, as Princess Nei refuses to believe that Han will fall to Qin so easily. At nighttime, Rin and the other medical professionals take care of the numerous wounded Qin soldiers. Kyokai wonders if Shin will be able to launch an attack at Tosa Plains tomorrow, and that's because he's a little bit injured. But Shin angrily remarks that he'll take Rakuei-kan's head. The next day, the Qin and Han armies line up at Tosa Plains, ready to engage each other in another epic exchange. In Shinte, peace preservation units keep a strict watch over the city, as Princess Nei hopes that Rakuei-kan can pull out a miracle. A messenger then comes in from the battlefield, reporting that Rakuei-kan has suffered a great defeat at Tosa Plains. Half of the Han troops were lost, and many of their officers had fallen. In a flashback, we see the respective layouts of the Qin and Han army, and you'll notice that Kyokai's unit is being placed in front of Shin's unit, which is quite peculiar. Kyokai boosts the morale of her men, to the point that they obliterate the first wave of the Han army. When they eventually tire out, Shin's unit comes in for a much-needed boost in vitality. When Kyokai's unit rests up, they re-enter the battlefield with enough vigor to charge ahead and take the enemy general's head. With General Hadon being defeated in battle, the remaining units are eventually forced to retreat back to General Rakuei-kan. To's army would take General Bihei's head, and with no other recourse, Rakuei-kan was forced to retreat to the capital. Although Princess Nei wants to protect the capital of Han, the various clans plot their escape so that they can protect their lineage. The various nobles argue what they should give up in peace negotiations, as Princess Nei emphasizes that they must put up a united front to prevent the Qin army from stealing everything. Now, as it turns out, the citizens inside the castle walls have heard the news, leading to a revolt and demands to escape. Sometime later, Princess Nei sees the Qin soldiers killing the citizens and burning down the entire city. The whole situation makes her cry profusely, as she soon wakes up from her nightmare. Kakuryu then suggests that they issue a conscription order to all the residents over the age of 5. I mean, this guy's insane. Now, Princess Nei is strongly against this, believing they have enough military strength to prevent the Qin army from taking the capital. Nevertheless, Kakuryu is dead set on sacrificing every last person to protect Han. But Princess Nei says that they will surrender before the people are completely annihilated. Word then comes in that the rioters are being killed, and that their severed heads are being displayed to prevent more unrest. Rumors then swirl about a possible conscription, as the various residents plead with Princess Nei to spare the children. With all the turmoil, Rakuei-kan's army finally returns to Shinte. Wives and children cry over their dead family members, as Princess Nei is completely horrified by what she sees. Not wasting the moment, Kakuryu plays on the people's emotions, urging them to sacrifice themselves for the sake of protecting Han. Elsewhere, at the Han-Wei border, Ohan's unit is going up against the great General Gaimo's army. Now, not only is Ohan's army struggling, but Go-Ho-Mei's army of 30,000 is quickly approaching. Ohan will confront Go-Ho-Mei with 7,000 men, determined to prevent Wei from interfering with their plans in Han. Meanwhile, Moten's 50,000 men confront the 70,000 men of Shunshuju's army. As it just so happens, Futei's army of 10,000 is also coming. So Moten decides to hold them off with 5,000 to prevent them from breaking through. With both Ohan and Moten holding back armies twice their size, To and Shin will need to finish off things quickly in Shinte. Otherwise, it's going to turn into chaos. In Shinte, Kakuryu calls upon the king to give a rousing speech to the citizens. He wants them to be motivated like the people of Sai back during the Coalition War. The king, however, is unable to make a decision, as we can see that he's really not cut out for this sort of thing. Rakuei Khan explains to Princess Nei that the killing of civilians was Kakuryo's doing, and he's rather displeased that that man is given such authority. He's also displeased with the notion of children fighting in the war. Now, he's going to monitor the castle walls for now, but he implores Nei to fulfill the role that she has envisioned for herself. Later on, the king admits to Nei that he is just an ordinary man, a man who does not desire all this responsibility. He then reveals that he knows that she talked to To at Aite Plains, and that To offered a bloodless surrender. The king realizes that this is the correct decision. However, it would bring an end to the history of the great state of Han. The king is utterly paralyzed with fear, even breaking down in tears in front of his daughter. And just then, with the entire weight of the world on his shoulders, the Qin army finally arrives. A human army as far as the eye can see. The king mentions something rather surprising, as various attendants then take him back to the royal court. We then learn to prevent Kakuryo from causing a ruckus. He'll forcibly declare surrender, and have the To army take over control of Shinte. In the now, Nei is conflicted about what she should do, as she then makes her way over to the East Dragon Tower. Outside the castle walls, To hesitates in giving the order to attack, as he's hoping that Princess Nei will heed his words and open the gates for him. Nei and her maids make their way to the East Dragon Tower, as Kakuryo's men look to head her off. Realizing he can't delay any further, To orders his men to ready the siege towers. Nei expeditiously makes her way to the top of the bell tower, hoping that she can put a stop to this gruesome affair. She finally makes it to the top. However, she has some trepidation. If she rings this bell here and now, Han's history will end, meaning that all the deaths at Aite Plains will be for nothing. A woman who has only lived a mere 25 years, who understands almost nothing, all by herself, is such a thing permissible? Thinks Princess Nei. The emotions of the moment completely overwhelm her, as To somberly raises his hand to give the order to attack. The King of Han then rushes up to the bell tower, saying that this is the duty a king must fulfill. Nevertheless, even he allows the pressure of the moment to completely overwhelm him. Nei reminds him that they are ordinary people, and it's impossible to avoid regret. With this, they both grab onto the hammer and say that they will protect Han as they swing it at the bell. Now, To is literally moments away from unleashing the entire Qin army upon Shinte, but before he does so, he hears the sound of the bell ringing throughout the castle walls. At long last, the gates to Shinte open up to the Qin army, as the various castle guards claim that the king has saved them. The commander of the king's royal guard then officially surrenders to the Qin army, as To vows to forego any bloodshed. Kakuryo is pissed by the developments, drawing his knife upon those he considers traitors. Rakuei Khan's men wonder why they fought so hard in the first place, especially if they were going to surrender in the end. To, Roko Omi, and Kano's forces all enter the castle, and true to their word, not a single civilian was harmed. Rakuei Khan's army then confronts the Qin army in the main courtyard, for what looks to be a bloody affair. Rakuei Khan looks to give the order to attack, but that's when Princess Nei runs onto the battlefield to put a stop to things. She says that further bloodshed is pointless, and that she won't move from her spot. The angered Han soldiers will not yield to the princess, yet Rakuei Khan commands everyone to wait. He vows to rebuild the Han army, and eventually fight To once more. He considers it an act of rebellion against the royal family, and even if their great nation falls, the spirit of Han will live eternally through them. To, however, understands the truth. Rakuei Khan is not thinking about rebuilding whatsoever. He's simply removing all the rebels, the people that would serve as an obstacle to the flow of surrender outside the castle. He's also doing this to protect Princess Nei in this moment. As Nei cries profusely, Rakuei Khan takes his leave with his men. Rakuei Khan will take the rebels to Ran Castle, while Yoko helps out the Han soldiers that will now be absorbed into the Qin army. Rakuei Khan's army leaves, as Princess Nei collapses from the stress of the situation. The High Shin unit enters the castle at last, as Shin wonders if destroying a country is really this easy. The king commands his guards to kill Kakuryu, but the enraged man takes his own life before that can happen. The king then tells Prime Minister Cho to hand over the governing rights to Qin without any incident. In the 17th year of the first emperor's reign, 2030 BC, To attacked Han and captured King An of Han. They subsequently annexed all their land, leaving only 6 states in all of China. Word of Han's surrender eventually reached the ears of Ohan and Moten, leading the cheers of victory. And eventually, news of Han's surrender would reach the other 5 kings, and each one would tremble at this momentous moment, realizing that a great upheaval could be at hand. General To governs Shinte for the time being, while Rokoomi is sent out to Ran Castle to annihilate the remnants of the Rakuei Khan army. Although the people of Han have been saved, some of the citizens cannot accept the surrender, deciding to take their own lives rather than live under the rule of Qin. Nei then learns that Rockaway Khan's army was wiped out, including the general himself. And this leads to many tears and much worry. After hearing about Princess Nei's bouts of fainting, General Toad decides to check in on her. She says that she bears a huge burden of guilt for what happened to her people, and she's had numerous dreams of her dead compatriots screaming at her from beyond. She fears what will happen to her when she dies. But Toad reassures her that when a person dies, they simply become a warm light. Those lights gather up to become a great pillar of light, and that pillar reaches up to the heavens and shines down upon all of them. With her fears vanquished, she steps upon the ledge and then plunges her body down to the ground. "Please protect the people of Han," says Princess Nei. Toad desperately leaps after her, catching her hand in mid-flight and miraculously landing on the ground with no wounds suffered. He reminds her that she is responsible for saving the people of Han, and now she must live on to guide those very people. And if she should need it, Toad will dedicate himself to supporting her. I mean, if that doesn't sound like a marriage proposal, I don't know what does. Afterwards, it's stated that once the high officials arrive from Kanyo, it's a very real possibility that the Han royal family will be executed. However, Toad vows that something like that will never happen. With this, the high officials from Kanyo finally arrive. Shohei informs Han that Aisei will not sever the bloodline of the Han royal family. They will lose their royal titles, of course, but their status as a noble house will be protected. Rishi reminds them that they now live under the law of Qin, and under such law, they will foster a nation of equals. Shohei takes a moment to thank Toad for his efforts in this difficult campaign. Toad then says that he wants to gather up the various generals, so that he can discuss something with all of them. Once this occurs, Shohei takes a moment to thank all the generals for their continued service. He then reminds them that they will absorb the might of Han and use their total power to once again invade Zhao. And this time, they'll defeat Riboku. Toad also takes a moment to thank all the generals. And even though the war is over, the suffering of the people of Han is just beginning. Thus, he decides to lay down his own sword so that he can live his life supporting Princess Nei as she guides the people of Han. And as you can imagine, everyone is completely shocked by this sudden news. Kyokai determines that Toad's spine must be crooked, and it happened after he jumped off the wall to save Princess Nei's life. Toad then tells Shin that Roko Omi and the rest of them resented him for being handed General Oki's glaive all those years ago. But as it just so happens, Oki had realized that Shin would truly become a great general under the heavens, something that none of them had noticed up until recently. Toad officially relinquishes his status as a great general, reminding Shin that he must break through one more great wall before becoming one himself. And that great wall just happens to be Riboku, the man who has given Shin more problems than any other great general. Things proceed smoothly in Han, as Aisei wants to make a visit to meet with the old king and to see his friend Shin. Word then comes in from Shohei that the decisive battle with Zhao will be early next year. All the major armies are preparing themselves, including Yotenwa, who has summoned the entire Quanrong army from Ryoyoa to march upon the capital of Canton. Behind the scenes, Osen has been mobilizing his own army, returning to the former strength that it once was. Elsewhere, Osen summons his 5 generals: Naraku, Ankai, Shinsho, So-o, and Riju. He informs them that Yotanwa will attack from Heiyo. Shin and To's armies will attack from Shinte, Moten and Ohan will head to the north, and their unit will advance from the east to defeat Riboku. And soon, they'll receive troops from the Han army. And Osen plans on using them for some daring tactics. It sounds like he wants to sacrifice them. Though Riboku will certainly be ready to meet their challenge, Osen claims that this will be the final, decisive battle. With things proceeding smoothly in Shinte, much of Shin's forces have been sent home to rest up. Shin, on the other hand, will head towards the castle of Zhou near the Wei border. He wants to congratulate Ohan on his victory, but his visit lasted a mere 3 minutes before Ohan shooed him away. On his way to Nanyo, he eventually meets up with Moten and receives a much warmer greeting. In fact, they drink the whole night together. Upon returning to Kanyo, Shin would discover that Aisei had yet another child. In fact, according to the records of the Grand Historian, King Aisei of Qin would have over 30 children. Sometime later, Bihei would witness the birth of his own child, an event that would bring together the main members of Shin's army. Tobi, Bihei's wife, agrees to call the boy To. Now, just for clarification, they're naming him To after Bito, one of the original squad leaders from the Haishin unit in the early days. He was one of Shin's earliest companions and gave his life to save Shin during the Battle of Bayo. So it's not the Great General To, it's actually B-To. It is now the year 2029 BC, and Kaine watches the sunrise with Riboku. Shortly afterwards, the major generals of Zhao's army all assemble to meet up with Riboku. Likewise, the major generals of Qin meet up to discuss the annihilation of Zhao. Now, many great generals have lost their lives to Riboku, including General Oki, Dukyo, and General Kanki. Despite it all, I say it's certain that their current force is the strongest in all of history, and it will be deployed to defeat Riboku once and for all. In Canton, Kakukai says that if Riboku defeats the Qin army, they'll surely be purged in a single day. Therefore, he plans on using Yoko to infiltrate Riboku's camp so they can discover his weakness. Riboku makes his way back to Canton to the roars of the exhilarated crowd. Now, ever since King Sen's enthronement, he devoted his life to hedonistic pleasures. But upon seeing this sight, he finally realized how much the people of Zhao truly loved Riboku. Overwhelmed by this, he understood that Riboku was the true king of the country. Riboku then goes through the proper procedures of informing the king of his plans. But before he's allowed to take his leave, King Sen has a request. Nay, not a request, a demand. Strip naked right here, right now, Riboku. Clearly, the king feels slighted by Riboku's aura, aiming to embarrass him for his own pleasure. Riboku politely refuses, making it clear that he's not a subservient vassal who does nothing more than grin and flatter. After the two share some biting words, King Sen grants Riboku an additional 50,000 troops, and implores him to annihilate the demons from the Qin army. Upon leaving Canton, Riboku tells his men that they need to guide King Sen correctly, so that he can send Zhao on the proper path. Though it seems impossible at the moment, Riboku senses that some kind of change is beginning to stir within him. Shin then meets up with Yoko and his men, as they all raise up flags of Qin in a display of solidarity. Kyokai then shows off her new suit of armor, impressing all of her men. I kind of find it funny that Kyokai gets a really cool set of armor when she becomes general, yet Shin is still in basically rags at this point. But I guess that's coming in a future chapter. Shin then gives a rousing speech to the entire army, saying they will advance toward Zhao with the intent of taking Riboku's head. The united force takes off with 60,000 troops in Shin's army, 60,000 troops in Roko Omi's army, and 50,000 troops in Yoko's army, totaling a massive army of 170,000. To watches the Qin army take their leave, as he and Nei focus their efforts on bringing order to Ice and Commandery. Elsewhere, Riboku takes Kaine to the site of a wedding hall. Now, he wanted to tell her something vital after the war in Hango, but post-war matters got in the way. Therefore, he wants to tell her something here and now. And this is when he asks Kaine to become his wife. Overwhelmed by the situation, she breaks down in tears and hugs him. Now, for good measure, Riboku asks her once more, and she firmly says yes. The two pray to a shrine and seal the deal with a kiss on the lips. Upon returning to camp, everyone celebrates the great news. Well, everyone except for Fute, who looks pretty pissed off. But Fuji says that after they win the battle, they'll hold a grand celebration for Kaine and Riboku, so that the two can finally seize their own happiness. Meanwhile, Shin and the 170,000 troops make their way across the Yellow River, so that they can confront Riboku and the Zhao army. Shin notices Ohan's ships off in the distance, and wanting to get to port first, the two collide with each other in a very childish fashion. "Ohan, you bastard! Stop ramming into us! We were here first! Move it!" yells Shin. The young three generals then meet with each other on top of a hill, realizing that this will probably be the last time they see each other until the very end. The one who will slay Riboku is one of the three of us. Someone from this group will slay Riboku, declares Moten. Whoever claims this massive achievement will be the first to enter the 6 great generals. Of course, Shin believes this will be him. Moten and Shin say their farewells, as Ohan, like always, remains standoffish. Sightings of Qin's forces in the outer regions of Zhao begin, as numerous residents start abandoning their homes. Riboku had anticipated such events, and had established evacuation routes for the populace of each region. However, because the Qin army had appeared at every single point along the front lines, the refugees have no safe haven to escape to. Though the situation looks dismal, Riboku had traveled to many castles ahead of time, inspiring the locals to push on no matter the circumstances. And because of this, the locals look very motivated to do so. In Canton, the royal officials are absolutely flabbergasted by the amount of Qin forces. Even though Riboku is a genius, the various officials wonder if he can truly win in such a dismal situation. Because Shin and Kyokai's units will be separated from each other in the battlefield, Kyo-Rei decides to give Ko a goodbye kiss, something that surprises everyone. Shin then jokes that Kyokai has got to give him a kiss too, but she doesn't look amused by this. Kyokai's unit then takes their leave, as Shin vows to take Riboku's head. Elsewhere, reports start flooding into Riboku about the current arrangements. And with this, the epic war between the two dominant states of China is about to begin. Danto, the Figo King, wants to use this battle to impress Yotanwa so that he can win her over. Kitari warns Yotanwa that the old fortune teller has been getting some strange omens, and that the upcoming battle is going to be a rough one. Kanjo is pissed that Ohan volunteered for the most difficult position in the battlefield, but Akakin thinks that this is a stroke of luck, since it might lead them to Riboku's head. Ohan warns them that this battle is on a scale the likes of which they've never seen. However, a golden opportunity will surely present itself. Osen's army assumes their battle positions, as we see that So-Oh and Shiryo are going to take part in fighting Zhao. Now remember how Zhao let them go earlier on? Well, that could end up biting them in the butt. Moten's army also takes up their positions, as Aizen wishes Moten good fortune in battle. Yoko's forces will not be placed on the main battlefield, which is to be expected, since it's their first campaign with the Qin army. Now in case you're wondering, here's a complete layout of the battlefield. We can see all the generals in their respective armies, and in total, Zhao has 400,000 troops in this military campaign, and Qin has 440,000. It's by far the biggest battle that we've seen between two states, and will surely lead to some epic battles and some tragic deaths. Bihei gives his men a rousing speech to motivate them for the upcoming battle. Shin makes it clear that the Haishin unit will slay Riboku, and they will lead the Qin army to victory in this great war. Now the Haishin unit will be going up against Fute and Kaine's armies, which means that both generals will be looking to prove themselves. Just then, Riboku of Zhao's three great heavens appears on the battlefield. He reminds them that the beasts of Qin have come to murder their families, but they will not only repel them, they will bring them death. Death to the invaders. With this, in the year 2029 BC, the war for the complete conquest of Zhao begins. Moten is lucky not to be facing off against Shibasho, which means that he'll be serving as the main thrust. And if they play their cards right, they might be the first ones to reach Canton. Elsewhere, Osen will face off against the mighty Shibasho, in what should be a clash of epic proportions. In addition, Kyokai is going up against General Kisu, while Yotanwa is going up against the combined force of Shunshuju and Bonanji. On this day, along the Qin-Zhao border, a war to decide the fate of both nations began at once. Because Riboku can't focus his efforts on a single point, Shohei says that this will continue to be the most difficult kind of war for him. Karen suspects that Qin will win, based on the quality of their army. That being said, Chu stands to gain the most if the war drags out for an extended period of time. On the battlefield, Danto plows through numerous soldiers with the force of a truck. Unfortunately, an arrow pierces his neck, knocking him clean off of his horse. The arrow came from one of the 10 bows of China. The man hailed as the current number 1, Saquon. As Danto coughs up blood, he tells his men to inform Yotanwa that a vicious archer is closing in on her. Shunshuju orders his men to slaughter the Figo army while their leader is incapacitated. Yotanwa wonders what's going on, so she decides it's time to enter the battlefield, as Saquon looks to take her out next. Though Saquon gave up his bow in the past, Riboku convinced him that to be merciless is fine, for the battlefield is a merciless place. And with this, we see an arrow go straight through Yotanwa's chest. The Lord of Death has fallen. The various mountain tribesmen gather around her body, but her current disposition doesn't look good. Kitari gets called in from the battlefield, finding out that Yotanwa was shot through the chest. In a brief flashback, Yotanwa encourages her men to fight on. They must display the strength of the Yotanwa army. Though Yotanwa is currently receiving treatment, her condition is quite severe, so things are looking pretty dicey. With no one being able to sense the arrow of Saquon, they fear that the deadly assassin is currently en route to aim for his next big target. And as it just so happens, his next target is the most dangerous young general out there, Shin of the Haishin unit. Though Baijio, Taijifu, Shunmin, and Kitari provide a much needed boost on the battlefield, it wasn't enough to shift the flow in their favor. Moten is in the adjacent battlefield, as he receives the troubling news that Yotanwa was struck down. With this, he's going to send over 12,000 troops to the right to supplement the mountain tribesmen. This development is extremely troubling. What's more, the former troops from the state of Han are still in uncertainty, and that could pose some problems in the future. Reports then come in that Kyokai's army of 20,000 is struggling against Kisu's of 50,000. Rakue Sho is entrusted with 20,000 troops from Yoko, and has come to help out Kyokai on the wings. It sounds like a good idea, but if they were to be betrayed by the former Han soldiers, they would totally be surrounded by 70,000 troops in an instant. Kyokai questions the young man believed to be the orphan of Rakue-kan, wondering if he holds a grudge against Qin. The boy recounts his father's last words, that although he lost 2 frustrating battles to Qin, they were honorable ones. And this is all Kyokai needs to hear, as she's certain that Rokuei Sho is a man of his word, and will fight honorably for the Qin army. She dubs them the Rokuei Army, and implores them not to die on the battlefield. With 40,000 troops now under her command, the Qin army reverses the tide against the 50,000 strong Kisu army. The group led by Saquon crosses the mountains like the wind, finally arriving at the battlefield of their target, the Haishin unit. In a flashback, Riboku and Saquon go back and forth about the duty of those who hold power. Saquon believes that there is no target to serve as the final conclusion, therefore his place is not on the battlefield. Riboku will find the quote-unquote path, but for him to do so, he needs Saquon's bow. But it won't be for mass murder. He just needs him to use 1 quiver's worth of arrows. We will shatter the worst path known as Qin's unification by force. That is the first step of our path, says Riboku. Now these words are enough to sway Saquon for one last battle, as he prepares to demonstrate the extent of his abilities. In the now, Saquon and his men arrive on the battlefield of the Haishin unit. As he draws closer, he notices the bows of Qin, specifically speaking, Tan and Jean, and he's actually quite impressed with their talent. And with that, guys, that's the end of chapter 858 and the end of the material that I could talk about. There's no other chapters out at this time. I'm going to take a break from Kingdom from a while, but when we finally hit chapter 900, I plan on combining all the relevant videos to make one comprehensive one for you guys. The current arc is shaping up to be one of the best ones in the entire manga. I mean, there's a ton of arcs in Kingdom. I mean, a ton. I mean, this is just going to be a massive arc. I suspect it's going to be 100+ chapters. Every major general from the Qin and Zhao army is taking part. And yeah, we're just going to see some very epic battles and probably a lot of heartbreaking deaths. Holy cow, guys, this is shaping up to be one of the best arcs out there. And once we get to chapter 900, I plan on releasing a comprehensive video like I did for chapters 1 to 795, so be on the lookout for that. But until next time, I'll catch you guys later.